reality, and that's precisely what we did. Our findings were shocking. We found that between 2009 and 2015, in each of those 7 years, anywhere between 55 and 85% of properties were being assessed in violation of the Michigan State Constitution. And when we broke that data up, we found that the lowest valued homes, 95% or more, were being assessed in violation of the Michigan State Constitution. But when we got to the highest valued homes, it was less than 20%, which means that the burden of this illegality is falling on the most vulnerable homeowners, the homeowners with the lowest valued homes. Yeah, whew, this research made me so mad. It made me so mad, y'all. And while most professors do their research, they do their findings, and then they move on, I'm not that professor, okay? I'm not that professor. I'm an organizer. And so that was a moment where I said, I had all I can stand. I can't stand no more. Honey, I rolled up my sleeves and I got to work, okay? And I got to work because that's what Karen Bass and Community Coalition taught me to do. But more importantly, I got to work because that's what my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ has called me to do. He has called me to this work. And I'm very clear. This is my Esther moment. You know, God has been preparing me for such a time as this. All of these Ivy League degrees and all of this privilege and my whole career studying land stolen from black people was to prepare me for this moment to come to this 80% black city and help these black people fight this land being stolen right before our very eyes. So I'm here in Detroit, and I'm one of the conveners of something called the Coalition for Property Tax Justice. Yes. We have over 12 different organizations that are part of our coalition, and we are committed to 3 goals. Number 1 is stopping these unconstitutional tax assessments. And for this, what we do, as a coalition, we filed to date over 1,000 property tax appeals. And that's something we can do for everybody in this room. We look at your taxes. We don't do landlords, but if you're an owner, we'll look at your taxes, we'll run the numbers, and if you're being overassessed, we'll file the appeal for free. And we filed the appeal for one of our fighters who's in the front row here, Miss Tahira Ahmad, my dear Miss Tahira Ahmad. We filed the appeal for her house, and Miss Tahira, you know, she knew that her taxes was high before we started working with her, but she didn't know they were illegal. She didn't know they were in violation of the Michigan State Constitution. And in fact, when I started my research, the very first thing I did is spoke to all the public officials who are in charge of property tax administration to find out what they thought was the origin of the city's property tax foreclosure crisis. And every explanation I got was about the failure of personal responsibility. People in Detroit just don't want to pay their taxes. People in Detroit bought houses they couldn't afford. One of them even had the audacity to tell me that when people had a choice between buying purses and paying their taxes, unfortunately, they decided to buy the purse. So different words, but again, this is all narratives of personal irresponsibility. But through filing these property tax appeals as a coalition, we've been able to transform the narrative from one of personal irresponsibility to one of structural injustice. This property tax foreclosure crisis exists because you are systematically overtaxing Detroiters, not because of anybody's personal irresponsibility or anybody wanting to buy a purse. So our second goal in the coalition is to stop these foreclosures. We have this empirical evidence about the overtaxing, yet they're still foreclosing. And as a coalition, we have successfully prevented foreclosures in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and we're currently working on a moratorium for 2024. And through our work as a coalition, we have saved over 13,000 homes from going to the property tax foreclosure auction. And the other way as a coalition that we prevent people from going to property tax foreclosure is we've put over 1,000 Detroit homeowners in touch with $4.4 million in federal money that they use to pay their illegally inflated property tax debt. One of those people who we helped was Miss Edith Ford. She's not here today, but she's in LA. But Miss Edith Ford, honey, I call her Edie, but the brothers on the block call her the queen of the East Side. And Edie is a fourth-generation Detroiter, and she lives in a house she inherited from her grandparents, and she lives with her grandson, who's a sixth-generation Detroiter in that house. And because they were illegally inflating her property taxes, Edie had accumulated some property tax debt. So we put her in touch with this My Half program, this federal money I'm talking to you about, and she got $3,000 to wipe clean all of her past property tax debt. And we did that for over 1,000 different Detroit homeowners. We put them in touch with this federal money. Our third and final goal as a coalition is compensation. Because they stole over $600 million from Detroiters, okay? And you can't just be having all of this empirically verified proof of theft talking about some, oops, I'm sorry. No, baby, we need compensation, okay? So what we're doing on that score, our wins on that score is, again, we're owed over $600 million, but we've secured $6 million from Detroit City Council for compensation. Although it's a small amount, it's a start, y'all. We got to start somewhere. It's a start. But more importantly, we launched a program called the Dignity Restoration Program, and that is a program that is really trying to give compensation to the hardest hit. And we have Miss Alexandra Nichols, who's here with us today as well. Her story is her family. Her father was a sanitation worker. Her mother was a school teacher here in Detroit. They had 10 kids. Alex is the youngest. Their oldest child is someone who you all may know, Reverend Mother Joanne Watson. May her soul rest in peace. They were living, that was their family house since 1977. And in 2014, they took the house through tax foreclosure for failure to pay their illegally inflated property taxes. So we're fighting for people like Alex and her family to get compensation. And the most important thing about the Dignity Restoration Program is it's a moral match, meaning we cannot possibly expect the city of Detroit to pay for all of the compensation because then it's just overtaxed Detroiters paying themselves back. So with the Dignity Restoration Program, we're raising money from the federal government, foundations, corporations. Our goal is to raise $100 million to provide compensation to people like Alex and her family. So I just want for everybody, Alex, if you could stand up, Ms. Tahira, if you could stand up, all of our leadership at the community, at the coalition, if y'all could stand up and be recognized, y'all. And if anybody here who's part of our movement, stand up. If you've come to any of our virtual events, if you've come to any of the Coffee and Stories, which is every first Saturday, stand up and be recognized. If you're part of our mailing list and you've done one of our virtual actions, like sending a letter, stand up and be recognized. Y'all give these, we call ourselves the Homekeeper Warriors. Give them a wild round of applause. So y'all, although I was never able to become a soul-trained dancer, we certainly are tapping that ass of property tax injustice, y'all. Come on. All right, y'all, I'm having too much fun. I'm gonna stop cutting up. Thank you for listening.